Okay guys, so we have already learned the bottom half of our PEMDAS, right? We learned that we multiply and divide first, and then we add and subtract, and that we move from left to right when it comes to multiplying and dividing, so they're reversible. Okay, same thing for add and subtract, they're reversible. Okay, and we move left to right. So now we're going to talk about our parentheses and our exponents. So remember, when we have parentheses, okay, there has to be some operation inside the parentheses in order for them to be considered parentheses. Okay, so we have to have an add, a subtract, a multiply, or divide inside the parentheses in order for them to be considered parentheses. Okay, and remember, an exponent is the tiny number at the top of your base number. Okay, so we're going to throw in our parentheses and our exponents today. Okay, so we're going to open it up. We have already solved examples 1, 2, and 3, and so now we're going to talk about examples 4 and 5. Okay, so this is still PEMDAS. We still have mixed operations, but now we're going to throw in those parentheses and those exponents. All right, so I look at my problem and I say, oh, I have lots of mixed operations. I have some parentheses, I have some multiplication, I have some subtraction, I have an exponent, lots and lots of things. So when you see those mixed operations, we're going to write out our PEMDAS. Okay, so I write it out. And I'm just gonna circle what I see, okay? So I see I have parentheses, right? Here's some parentheses inside. There's some operation, so I have some parentheses. I also have an exponent, okay? I have some multiplication, right? A number right next to parentheses is multiplication. I also have a dot, which is multiplication. I don't have any division, and I do have some addition, but that addition is inside of a parentheses. So it doesn't technically count, but I do have a subtraction, okay? So lots and lots of things we're working on. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I don't have any dividing or adding, okay? So I'm gonna mark those out. So we start at the very top, and remember, we work our way down. So I'm gonna start with my parentheses. So just like before, when we are solving, we box the part we're working on. So I'm working on the parentheses, so I'm gonna box my parentheses. And I'm gonna bring my answer down. So I have 6 plus 8. 6 plus 8 is 14. Once I solve my box, I'm gonna mark it off. Okay, once I solve it, I mark it off. And then I'm just gonna bring everything else down. So my 2 was right next to my parentheses, which means it is multiplication. So I can just now write multiplication. I don't need to keep it in parentheses. Over here, I have a minus 5. I have my dot, which is multiplication. And then I have a 3 to the power of 2, or 3 squared. Okay, so I've brought everything down and I'm ready for my next step. So I look, do I have any more parentheses? No, so I'm gonna mark it off. So now I've moved on to the E. The E stands for exponent, exponent. So I'm gonna look, oh yes, I do have an exponent. So I'm gonna box it and I'm gonna bring it down. So remember, 3 squared is like saying 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. So over here, I'm gonna write 9. Once I've solved the box, I'm gonna mark it off, and I'm gonna rewrite everything outside the box. Okay? So I look and I say, do I have any more exponents? No, mark it off. So now I'm moving on to my multiplication. So I can look and I say, remember, we move left to right. So moving left to right, my very first multiplication is here, 2 times 14. So I box it off and I say, okay, I'm not sure what 2 times 14 is, so I'm gonna come over here and say 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 1 is 2. So I bring this down, I have 28. And I have solved that, so I can mark the box off, okay? And then I'm gonna rewrite everything else. So I have a minus 5, and then a times 9. So I keep looking, do I still have multiplication? Yes, the dot means multiplication, so I have to solve that one. So I'm gonna box it. Remember, you just box the number, not the sign in front. okay? So I have 5 times 9, which is 45. I solved my box, so I get rid of it, and I'm gonna rewrite 28 and my minus sign. From that point, I just have my subtraction, so I can get rid of my multiplication. So I'm gonna box my subtraction. And in this case, 28 is smaller than 45, right? So we have a negative number. We're gonna end up with a negative number. So remember, we draw our line, and this side is positive 28, and this side is negative 45. So those are different signs subtract. So 45 minus 28, we're gonna have to borrow, and we end up with 17. So my answer is 17, and then 45 has more power, right? It's further from 0, so we're gonna keep that negative. So this will be negative 17. All right. All right, and then our last example is mixed operations again. So we're gonna write our PEMDAS out and circle what we have. So remember, multiply and divide next to each other, add and subtract next to each other. All right, and I'm gonna look and see what do I have in my problem. So I have some parentheses, so I'm gonna circle that. I have an exponent right here. I have some multiply. I don't have any subtract, I don't have any division, so I can mark out the division. I do have a couple of additions, and there is no subtraction. The subtraction here is inside the parentheses, so it doesn't count for this subtraction. All right, and we're just gonna start working our way down. So step 1, parentheses. So I'm gonna box my parentheses, and I'm gonna bring it on down. So remember, 8 minus 10, 8 is smaller than 10. So we have a positive 8 and a negative 10. So these are different signs. Different signs we subtract, and we're gonna end up with 2. And then remember, 10 has a greater absolute value. It has more power. So we're gonna keep that negative sign. So I get rid of my box, and I'm gonna bring everything else down. So in front, I had a 4 with no sign. Remember, when there's no sign, it means multiply. So I'm gonna bring down my multiply 4. I had an exponent, so I'm gonna bring down my exponent. It stays on my number. And then I have a plus, a 7, a plus, and then a negative 3, okay? And I look and I say, do I have any more parentheses? No, so I'm gonna mark it out. These are parentheses, but there's a sign in front that's addition, so it's not multiplication, okay? So now we're gonna move on to our exponent. So I'm gonna go through and box my exponent. So in this case, I have a negative 2 squared, right? I left my multiplication symbol outside. So negative 2 squared. Remember, negative 2 squared is like saying negative 2 times negative 2. So negative 2 times negative 2 is gonna be 4, and the negatives and negative make a positive. So this is gonna be positive 4, okay? So once I do that, I can mark it out, and I'm ready to rewrite the rest of my problem. So in front, I had a 4 and a multiplication symbol. Remember, this is a positive 4, so really I don't need the positive. It's just 4. And then behind it, I had a plus sign, a 7, a plus sign, and then remember, the parentheses just tell me, oh, that's a negative number, so I'm just gonna leave the parentheses out. All right, any more exponents? No, so I can mark it out. Okay, then I move on to my multiplication. So I'm moving from left to right. So I have 4 times 4. Remember, we had a positive sign there, so that's 4 times positive 4. 4 times 4 is gonna be 16. Once I've solved my box, I can cross it out, and I'm going to rewrite everything else. So I have a plus a 7 plus a negative 3. Okay? So I look and I say, do I have any more multiplication? So looking, I have a plus and a plus. No. There's no more multiplication. We didn't have any division. So I can move on to my adding. Remember, when you're adding, you're going to move left to right. So in this case, I'm going to box my 16 plus 7. Okay, 16 plus 7. So 16 plus 7 is going to be 23. Okay, once I have solved my 16 plus 7, I get rid of the box and I rewrite everything outside of it. So plus a negative 3. Okay, I'm still working on my adding and subtracting. So in this case, that's my last step. So I'm going to box it and I'm going to bring it down. So I have a negative and I'm adding, so I need to sing my integer song. So I'm going to rewrite my numbers. So I have a positive 23, and in this case, good versus evil. Evil's going to win. So now I can ask myself, same signs or different? Well, 23 is positive, 3 is negative, so these are different signs. So we're going to subtract. 23 minus 3 is 20. And we keep the sign of the number with the biggest absolute value. So 23 has more power, so it's going to be a positive 20. Okay, and then there's nothing else to solve in that box. So I cross it out, and my final answer will be 20. Okay, so PEMDAS is really all about taking your time and doing it one step at a time, all the way down until we're finished with our PEMDAS.